ever wonder what Elvis was doing when he wasn't making history? Did the King have a secret silly side that most fans never got to hear? Behind the leather suits and serious sneer, Elvis Presley recorded some truly bizarre novelty tracks that have largely been forgotten by history. These musical oddities might make you question everything you thought you knew about the legendary performer. Number 12. The Yoga Instructor. Remember when exercise crazes swept America in the 1960s? Elvis didn't just watch from the sidelines. In 1964, during a particularly playful studio session after completing work on the Roustabout soundtrack, Elvis and the band were feeling loose. The King had just returned from a trip to India, where he'd become fascinated with yoga and meditation practices. The session musicians were taking a break when Elvis started mimicking an Indian yoga instructor with an exaggerated accent, directing everyone to breathe deeply and find your center. Sound engineer Thorn Nogar, always ready to capture lightning in a bottle quietly rolled tape. Elvis, unaware he was being recorded, launched into an improvised song called The Yoga Instructor, complete with sitar-like guitar, sounds from Scotty Moore, who modified his playing style on the spot. The track featured Elvis breathing heavily between verses while chanting made-up mantras and occasionally breaking into laughter. When Elvis discovered the tape was rolling, he initially wanted it destroyed. Colonel Tom Parker, however, saw potential in the bizarre 3-minute track. While it was never officially released, acetate copies were pressed for Elvis's inner circle as Christmas gifts that year. Only about 15 copies exist today, making it one of the rarest Elvis recordings ever. Collector Dennis Harbinson of Memphis claims to own one, saying, "You haven't lived until you've heard Elvis attempting to teach breathing exercises in a fake Indian accent. It's simultaneously the worst and most fascinating thing he ever recorded." Number 11. Martian Rock. The 1950 space craze affected everyone, including Elvis. After the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in 1957, America became obsessed with space travel and potential alien life. During this period, science fiction films dominated theaters, and UFO sightings made regular headlines. Elvis, always attuned to cultural trends, decided to capitalize on this fascination. In a one-off late-night recording session in February 1958, just weeks before his Army induction, Elvis and his band recorded Martian Rock. The song depicted an alien landing on Earth and discovering rock and roll music. Elvis adopted a strange, high-pitched voice for the verses, supposedly mimicking how he imagined a Martian would sound. The chorus returned to his normal voice as the alien character embraced Earth's rock music. Studio musicians added theremin-like sound effects using early electronic equipment, creating an eerie backdrop. The track ended with Elvis making bizarre screeching sounds that were supposed to represent the Martian returning to space to spread rock and roll throughout the galaxy. RCA executives were baffled by the recording. Despite Colonel Parker's insistence that space-themed novelty songs could be profitable, the track was shelved indefinitely. Years later, when questioned about Martian Rock in a 1972 interview, Elvis claimed no memory of recording it, suggesting it may have been made during what he called one of those midnight creative bursts that disappeared by morning. Music historian Alan Jankowski hypothesizes Elvis was likely experimenting with his image before heading to the Army, perhaps seeing if science fiction themes could open new artistic avenues for his return to civilian life. Number 10. Hound Dog's Revenge. Did Elvis ever feel bad about his poor dog references? Apparently so. Following the massive success of Hound Dog in 1956, Elvis received hundreds of letters from children concerned about the poor dog that was being criticized in the song. Rather than explaining the adult innuendo of the Leiber and Stoller classic, Elvis decided to record a lighthearted response song. Hound Dog's Revenge was recorded in early 1957 as a potential B-side, but was ultimately deemed too silly for release. The song featured Elvis singing from the perspective of the hound dog, who gets back at the person who called him names by chewing up their blue suede shoes. The chorus included Elvis attempting to bark and growl like a dog between verses, something his deep voice was surprisingly adept at handling. Session musician DJ Fontana later recalled, "Elvis couldn't keep a straight face through most of the takes. Every time he got to the barking part, he'd break down laughing. It took nearly 20 attempts to get a complete version." The track featured an unusually prominent piano part played by Floyd Kramer, who incorporated playful, almost cartoon-like runs to enhance the comical nature of the lyrics. Colonel Parker actually favored releasing the song, believing it would appeal to younger fans and possibly launch a series of animal-themed novelty tracks. However, Elvis himself ultimately vetoed the release, feeling it might undermine his efforts to be taken seriously as an artist beyond his teen idol status. The master tape reportedly remained in Elvis's personal collection at Graceland for many years. Number 9. Peanut Butter Boogie. Food companies courted Elvis throughout his career. In 1957, at the height of his initial fame, several food manufacturers approached Colonel Parker about potential endorsement deals. While most were rejected, one almost came to fruition: a partnership with Peter Pan Peanut Butter. As part of the proposed deal, Elvis recorded Peanut Butter Boogie, a jingle-turned-full song about his genuine love for peanut butter sandwiches. The upbeat track featured Elvis singing about how peanut butter kept him energized during long tours and recording sessions. The chorus included the memorable line, "Spread it thick, spread it thin, peanut butter's my best friend," which was intended to become the company's new slogan. Elvis's enthusiasm on the track was genuine. His love for peanut butter, particularly when combined with banana and bacon in his famous sandwiches, was well documented. Studio notes indicate he consumed 2 such sandwiches during the actual recording session. The deal ultimately collapsed when Peter Pan executives requested lyric changes that would remove references to bananas, which they didn't sell, and add mentions of their specific product features. Colonel Parker demanded more money for the changes. Negotiations stalled, and the song was shelved. Elvis occasionally performed snippets of the song to amuse friends at parties, adding increasingly absurd verses about other favorite foods. Audio engineer Sam Phillips recalled, "It was actually a catchy little number, had more honesty in it than half the love songs on the radio. Elvis really did love his peanut butter that much." A bootleg version circulated briefly in the 1970s, with rumors suggesting a studio employee leaked it, though this copy featured significant tape degradation that rendered the final verse nearly unintelligible. Number 8. The Teddy Bear's Picnic. Children were among Elvis's most enthusiastic fans. Following the success of Teddy Bear in 1957, Elvis considered recording an entire album for children. As a test, he recorded a rock and roll version of the classic children's song, The Teddy Bear's Picnic, during an informal session at Radio Reciters in Hollywood. Unlike the gentle, somewhat mysterious original, Elvis transformed the song into an up-tempo rock number. He maintained the somewhat eerie lyrics about teddy bears coming alive and meeting in the woods, but delivered them with his signature vocal intensity. The backing arrangement included a prominent saxophone part by Boots Randolph and unusually heavy percussion that built to a frenetic pace by the song's conclusion. Studio notes mention that Elvis recorded the song in just 2 takes, treating it as something of a joke. However, when listening back to the master, both he and producer Steve Scholes were surprised by how effective the reinterpretation was. Scholes reportedly commented, "It's strange enough to work. Kids would love it, and it's just weird enough that adults might find it interesting too." RCA considered releasing the track as part of a children's EP for the Christmas 1957 market, but Colonel Parker intervened. He worried that marketing directly to children might pigeonhole Elvis and damage his appeal to teenage and adult audiences. The children's album concept was abandoned, though Elvis occasionally referenced his Scary Teddy Bear song in later interviews. Memphis musician George Klein, a longtime friend of Elvis, confirmed hearing the recording at Graceland in the 1960s, describing it as hypnotic and strange, like a children's nightmare set to rock and roll. Number 7. Alien Abduction Blues. Science fiction themes kept reappearing in Elvis's career. Following his Army discharge in 1960, Elvis became increasingly interested in cosmic phenomena, spirituality, and UFOs. This fascination found its way into an unreleased track recorded during the sessions for his 1961 album, Something for Everybody. Alien Abduction Blues was a tongue-in-cheek 12-bar blues number, describing a character who claims to have been abducted by aliens who taught him new dance moves from across the galaxy. The lyrics describe the protagonist trying to convince skeptical friends about his experience, culminating in him demonstrating the alien dance at a local hop and becoming the most popular dancer in town. The track featured unusually futuristic production techniques for the era, including echo effects on Elvis's vocals and reversed tape sections during the instrumental break. Section guitarist Hank Garland incorporated innovative use of volume pedal swells to create sounds reminiscent of flying saucers, while pianist Floyd Kramer played atonal clusters meant to represent alien communications. Producer Chet Atkins reportedly enjoyed the experimental nature of the track, but considered it too bizarre for commercial release. Colonel Parker was particularly opposed, believing the subject matter might connect Elvis to the growing kook culture surrounding UFO sightings. Elvis biographer Peter Gruelnik discovered references to the song in RCA recording session logs, noting it represented a rare moment where Elvis was allowed to indulge his more esoteric interests in the studio, even if the result was ultimately deemed too unusual for his mainstream audience. The master tape was presumably destroyed or lost during RCA's archive consolidations in the 1970s. Number 6. Caret King. Elvis's passion for martial arts is well documented. Beginning in the late 1950s and continuing throughout his life, Elvis studied various martial arts forms, eventually earning a black belt in karate. In 1973, during a particularly enthusiastic period of his karate training, Elvis recorded a novelty track celebrating the discipline. Caret King featured Elvis half singing, half speaking over a funk-influenced backing track. The lyrics explained basic karate concepts and emphasized the spiritual aspects of martial arts rather than just physical combat. Every chorus concluded with Elvis performing actual karate moves in the studio, with the microphone capturing his movement sounds and occasional shouts of "Hi-ya." Musicians on the session reportedly found the recording amusing but professional. Bass player Norbert Putnam later commented, "Elvis was completely serious about his karate. The song might have seemed like a novelty to us, but to him, it was a genuine expression of something he deeply respected. The track concluded with Elvis delivering a minute-long spoken-word section about how martial arts principles could improve American society if widely adopted. This philosophical coda, delivered while Elvis continued to demonstrate moves in the studio, was described by recording engineer Al Pachucki as surprisingly profound, especially given the somewhat comical nature of the song itself. Several people in Elvis's inner circle encouraged him to release the track, seeing it as a way to share his genuine passion for martial arts with fans. However, RCA executives were less enthusiastic, concerned the unusually personal nature of the content might seem self-indulgent. The track remained unreleased, though Elvis occasionally referenced it when demonstrating karate moves to friends and fellow entertainers backstage at concerts. Number 5. The Presidential Impression Suite. Elvis's famous meeting with President Nixon in 1970 wasn't his only connection to American presidents. Throughout his career, Elvis developed surprisingly accurate impressions of various presidents, which he would perform to amuse friends and colleagues. In April 1971, following a late-night Las Vegas performance, Elvis gathered his TCB band in his hotel suite and recorded what became known among insiders as the Presidential Impression Suite. The informal recording featured Elvis performing rock and roll versions of patriotic songs like America the Beautiful and Yankee Doodle Dandy, while impersonating presidents including John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Richard Nixon. Between songs, Elvis delivered monologues in character as each president, discussing everything from foreign policy to their supposed musical preferences. Guitarist James Burton later described the session. Elvis had these presidents down cold. His Kennedy was scary good, and his Nixon would have you looking around the room, thinking the actual president had walked in, but we still laid down some pretty good tracks. The recording concluded with Elvis performing the Star-Spangled Banner, while cycling through impressions of every president from Eisenhower to Nixon, somehow making each distinctly recognizable despite singing rather than speaking. While never intended for release, the recording circulated within Elvis's inner circle. When word reached the Nixon White House that such a recording existed, a staff member informally reached out to Colonel Parker to ensure it wouldn't become public, particularly given the tense political climate of the early 1970s. Parker reportedly assured the administration that the tape was merely private entertainment, though he allegedly maintained a copy as potential leverage in Elvis's ongoing efforts to receive a Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs badge. Number 4. Christmas on Mars. Elvis loved Christmas music. His Christmas albums rank among his most beloved recordings. What few fans know is that in 1965, Elvis recorded an entire space-themed Christmas EP that was shelved before release. Christmas on Mars was conceived during the sessions for his second holiday album. Elvis sings the wonderful world of Christmas. The concept combined Elvis's continued fascination with space exploration and his genuine love of Christmas music. The title track described a lonely astronaut stationed on Mars during the holiday season, dreaming of snow while surrounded by red dust. The four-song EP included Martian Christmas, Red Planet Sleigh Ride, No Chimneys on the Moon, and the title track. Each featured typical Christmas music arrangements, but with futuristic lyrics and occasional sound effects created by innovative use of studio equipment. Engineer Al Pachucki created Space Echo by running microphones through custom-modified delay units, giving Elvis's voice an appropriately otherworldly quality. Producer Felton Jarvis was enthusiastic about the project, seeing it as a way to modernize Christmas music for the space-age era. However, Colonel Parker strongly objected to the concept once he heard the rough mixes calling it confusing nonsense that would dilute the Christmas record sales and make Elvis sound like a kook. The project was abandoned, though session musician Charlie McCoy recalled those songs were actually pretty touching, especially the title track about missing Earth at Christmas time. Elvis sang it with real feeling, like he understood that loneliness. The master tapes were seemingly destroyed, though rumors persist that acetate reference copies were made for Elvis's personal collection. Number 3. The Hawaiian Robot. Elvis's love for Hawaii is legendary. Following the success of his Blue Hawaii film and soundtrack in 1961, Elvis recorded numerous songs with Hawaiian themes. During sessions for the Paradise Hawaiian-style soundtrack in 1965, Elvis became fascinated with a newspaper article about advancements in robotics. During a break in recording, Elvis began improvising a song called the Hawaiian Robot, describing a mechanical man who learns to perform hula dances and eventually becomes a tourist attraction at a Waikiki hotel. What began as a joke to amuse the studio musicians evolved into a complete recording when producer Boris Schaefer recognized the commercial potential of combining the popular Hawaiian theme with the growing public interest in technology. The finished track featured traditional Hawaiian instruments alongside electronic sound effects created by early synthesizers. Elvis affected a mechanical voice for verses when singing, as the robot character contrasting with his normal warm vocals when narrating the story. The track concluded with Elvis performing what session notes described as robot hula noises, combining mechanical sounds with traditional Hawaiian chanting. RC executives were divided on the song's potential. Some saw it as a natural novelty follow-up to capitalize on Elvis's Hawaiian popularity, while others worried it might seem bizarre and off-brand. After several test pressings were created, Colonel Parker ultimately decided against release, reportedly telling RCA's Steve Scholes, "Elvis is a human singing sensation, not some contraption with gears and wires." Movie producer Hal Wallace briefly considered building a scene around the song for Paradise, Hawaiian style, going so far as to commission concept sketches of a robot costume for Elvis. These plans were abandoned when script rewrites focused the film more on Elvis's relationship with children and animals rather than technological gimmicks. Number 2. The Wrestling Champion. Professional wrestling captivated Elvis. Throughout his life, Elvis was an avid wrestling fan, regularly attending matches in Memphis and becoming friends with several professional wrestlers. This interest inspired one of his most unusual, unreleased recordings. In 1974, following a Memphis wrestling event featuring his friend Jackie Fargo, an energized Elvis gathered musicians at Stax Studios for an impromptu late-night session. The result was The Wrestling Champion, a hard-driving rock song that told the story of a wrestler rising from obscurity to championship status through determination and showmanship. The track featured Elvis adopting different vocal styles to portray various wrestling characters, from the heroic protagonist to his villainous opponents. During instrumental breaks, Elvis incorporated actual wrestling announcer calls and crowd reactions, sometimes shouting commentary like a ringside reporter. Session drummer Ronnie Tutt recalled cranking up the intensity to match Elvis's energy, creating one of the most aggressive backing tracks from this period of Elvis's career. Most surprisingly, the song featured Elvis performing what he called wrestling sound effects by actually grappling with furniture in the studio to create authentic impact noises. Engineer Dave Purple later commented, "We had to keep replacing chairs because Elvis was body slamming them to get the right crash sounds. He was completely into character, sweating like he'd been in the ring himself." The track remained unreleased, primarily because Elvis injured his hand during the recording by punching a wall while demonstrating a wrestling move. This incident added to concerns from Colonel Parker and RCA about Elvis's increasingly erratic behavior in the studio. Wrestling historian Mark James notes, "The song revealed Elvis's genuine enthusiasm for wrestling's theatrical storytelling, something he incorporated into his own performing style." Number 1. Graceland, 2001. Was Elvis Presley somehow able to predict the future? In what might be his most bizarre unreleased recording, Elvis created a conceptual piece about what Graceland would be like in the year 2001, almost 25 years into the future from when it was recorded in late 1976. Graceland, 2001 was a spoken word piece with musical accompaniment, created during a particularly introspective period of Elvis's life. The track began with futuristic synthesizer sounds before Elvis's voice entered, narrating a tour of Graceland as it supposedly existed in the then-distant future of 2001. With uncanny accuracy, Elvis described Graceland as a major tourist attraction where visitors would pay to tour his former home, view his stage costumes, and learn about his career. He detailed specific rooms that would be on display and mentioned a meditation garden where he imagined future fans would leave tributes. Most eerily, he correctly anticipated tour buses regularly bringing visitors to the mansion, and gift shops selling Elvis memorabilia. Pianist Tony Brown, who participated in the session, later remarked, "It was like he was planning his own legacy. None of us thought much about it then, but after he passed and Graceland actually became exactly what he described, it gave me chills. It was like he knew." The recording concluded with Elvis speculating about how music would sound in 2001, with the band attempting to create what Elvis called future music, involving electronic instruments and unusual rhythmic patterns. This portion veered into more experimental territory that Elvis acknowledged might seem strange to contemporary listeners. The track was never seriously considered for commercial release, being viewed by producers as too personal and conceptual. Following Elvis's death in 1977, those who remembered the recording were struck by its prescient description of what Graceland indeed became as a tourist destination. Sound engineer Brian Christian noted, "Of all the unreleased material, this one haunts me the most. It's like he was narrating from beyond, describing exactly what would happen." Did Elvis have more creative sides that fans never got to experience? How many other unusual recordings might still be hidden in vaults, waiting for rediscovery? While these 12 songs represent some of the strangest material Elvis ever recorded, they also reveal a playful, experimental artist willing to venture far beyond his established image. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Elvis Presley isn't what we know about him, but what remains to be discovered about the man behind the legend.